Want to know the latest innovation in engineering? Are you curious about how technology and machinery works? The Kenya Engineer has answers for you. We are an authoritative journal covering engineering stories in Kenya and across East Africa. Log on to www.kenyaengineer.co.ke and get the latest on engineering jobs and tenders. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook and join the amazing world of engineering. Kenya Engineer, mystifying engineering.
Awesome! Brought to you by Kenya Engineer and Reiner Cement. Water is a basic human need. In addition to fueling our bodies, water is essential for cooking, irrigating crops, hygiene, and sanitation. Engineers are professionals who design, build, and maintain things which improve our lives. In this episode of Awesome, the amazing world of engineering, we explore how engineers meet the water challenge.
It is the responsibility of the engineer to plan, then carry out the studies, and then implement, and not only that, and then operate and maintain the works. Those are very important, because unless you have all those steps, then there's no way that you can be able to achieve and get a project.
1/5 of Kenyans have piped water in their houses or compounds. Due to population growth, especially in cities, the number of homes with piped water has actually decreased, leaving more people vulnerable to water diseases and hygiene-related diseases caused by inadequate water supply for washing and bathing. The World Health Organization defines access to water as having a water source that is less than 1 kilometer away from its place of use and sufficient to provide 20 liters per member in a household per day.
When we set up the service boards, the government realized that the water coverage was very low in the whole country, but particularly here in the Rift Valley. So when we did an assessment at the beginning, we were at averagely 32% water coverage. And as of the last count, which is normally done by ourselves jointly with independent authorities in the government, we are now, we have split into two the way we look at it now. We have coverage in the urban areas. Yeah, and that has risen to 75%. What that means is that in the urban areas of the Rift Valley, 75% of the population have access to clean water, which is a very big milestone for us, coming from 32% on average. And now in the rural areas, we still have a lot of challenges. We are up to 55% coverage. Another way of looking at coverage is to say, if you live in a town, 75% of the time you turn on the tap, there is water. What I mean, in 24 hours, you have water 18 hours. And it's a very high coverage if you compare to other areas in this country.
Before the reforms, it was 38%, and we are now globally at 64%, which is quite high. We have more than increased by over 50% in terms of coverage. We have also improved quite much in terms of the quality of the water that we give to our people, because initially really, what was being done was a very basic treatment, and in many times there was no treatment at all.
As too many Kenyans do not have access to water, the government has come up with strategies for increasing the water supply. One of the strategies is to create water boards. Currently, there are 8 water boards in various parts of Kenya, including the coast, Lake Victoria, and the Rift Valley. The job of water boards is to ensure that residents have access to clean and safe drinking water. Development and rehabilitation of sewerage facilities. These boards are part of the Ministry of Environment, Water and Natural Resources.
We are one of the 8 water services boards in this country. The country is divided into service board areas, basically around water catchment areas. So this one is Rift Valley Water Services Board. It's basically the inland lakes of this country. So the counties within the inland lakes of the country. We are talking about Turkana County, West Pokot, Elgeyo Marakwet, Baringo, Nakuru, Nyandarua, and Narok. It's not the traditional Rift Valley. As you can see, Nyandarua is included because of the drainage. The drainage basin of Nyandarua is towards the inland lakes here in the Rift Valley. Similarly, Kericho County, Uasin Gishu, they drain towards Lake Victoria, so they are not in this service board area. So those are 7 counties. The population at the moment is 5.5 million people.
Tana Water Services Board, of course, is a state corporation, and it has been in existence from 2004. Our core mandate is provision of water and sewerage services. However, we don't do it directly. We do it through agents, the water service providers, and within our board area, we have 23 such water service providers who are our agents in the provision of water and sewerage services. Our board also covers 6 counties.
The water boards rely on engineers as the professionals who have the knowledge and abilities to secure new water sources. Engineers discover new sources of water by looking for water tables, large amounts of underground water. Many industries are taking advantage of engineers' water table discoveries, as water is essential for every type of business.
Our role as a board is first of all to invest in water infrastructure. And once they are in place, you engage water service providers. I think you have heard of the water companies. For example, we have Nakuru Water Company. And that is the company that is charged with the responsibility of distributing that water once we have developed the sources.
Many companies fund engineers to construct dams and drill boreholes. Engineering technology such as drills and pumps have made borehole drilling easier.
It will provide a solution so we engineer in obviously all the piping and the electronic control and the structure and the pre-treatment, all these other aspects of it to make a standalone unit. And we have really built our capacity recently. In fact, we've just invested in a new assembly plant here on this site. And we've also very much increased our technical capacity. And we're very proud of what we've done because we believe now we have a solid engineering expertise which we can now translate into products. And of course, when you have products made locally, it has many, many advantages. First of all, cost advantages. Secondly, in terms of specification advantages, you get the product that you want. And very importantly, thirdly, you get serviceability advantages because if it's made here, then obviously it's very simply serviced and maintained. And so you can be assured that a locally manufactured product have a long service life and not fail.
In addition to important industrial uses, engineers also help us meet the daily challenge of water for household use. In rural areas, people, especially women and girls, spend hours every day transporting water to their home. Partly as a result of disproportionately suffering from this burden, girls have less time to study than boys, and their literacy rate is 5% lower than boys.
I'd like to tell you about a huge dam that ARM had put up way back in 1984. There was a lot of problem about water. Families, usually women and young girls, would go 10, 12, 15 miles to fetch water in the time. The best thing it could do for the community where we were mining in this land was to build a dam. So we used one of our Caterpillar dozers to build a dam, and within the first rain the dam filled up with water, and it still survives. It's a huge dam. People fish in it. And the number of people who live around the dam has now increased to several thousand. So it just goes to show the power of water to bring together a community. It's a source of livelihood for people everywhere, and particularly in rural communities where there's no piped water, where animals have to travel long distances for drinking water. and people for the drinking water as well. So putting together water resources, whether it's in the form of a dam or a piped water or a tank, as we have in Kaloleni, as we have in Kajiado, empowers the community, it makes their lives far more comfortable and allows children particularly to escape the burden of going to fetch water, and rather they can spend more time at school.
In September 2013, UNESCO, the UN Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, announced that, with the help of satellites and radar, groundwater was discovered in the Turkana and Lotikipi basins. If the local people, government and private sector follow the engineers' advice and make the most of this opportunity, hunger can become a thing of the past.
In Turkana, I think very many Kenyans know about the recent discovery of a large basin of water underground. We have just finished testing the first 3 boreholes. We're very excited with the results. I think we all saw what happened there. And so right now our service board is equipping the first borehole very near Lodwar town. We shall be drilling more and more boreholes until we have a lot of water to cover the entire Turkana, so that there will be that picture we always see of shortage of water in Turkana.
Increasing water supply is one thing, but is the water safe for human consumption? Stay tuned for part 2 of this episode to learn what engineers are doing to ensure that the water in your glass is safe to drink.
Want to know the latest innovation in engineering? Are you curious about how technology and machinery works? The Kenya Engineer has answers for you. We are an authoritative journal covering engineering stories in Kenya and across East Africa. Log on to www.kenyaengineer.co.ke and get the latest on engineering jobs and tenders. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook and join the amazing world of engineering. Kenya Engineer, demystifying engineering.
Rural Electrification Authority, lighting up rural Kenya. Rural Electrification Authority has invested 34 billion shillings so far to get electricity to the rural areas countrywide where thousands of Kenyans live. Now, more public institutions, trading centers, schools, health centers are getting connected to electricity. So far, Rural Electrification Authority has connected over 60% of all public institutions. By 2013, more than 1 million households will have electricity. Rural Electrification Authority, lighting up rural Kenya.
Water is unsafe when it contains germs and diseases which can harm people. Internationally, 1.6 million people die every year from waterborne diseases caused by a lack of access to safe drinking water and basic sanitation. 90% of these deaths are of children under 5 years old. Kenya's Vision 2030, the development blueprint, identifies water and sanitation as central to the goal of becoming a middle-income country. The Vision 2030 water and sanitation goal is to ensure that improved water and sanitation are available and accessible to all. Engineers have solutions to increase the safety of the country's water supply. Chemical engineers treat water to ensure that it is safe to drink.
We use the normal conventional processes. That is, we abstract water by gravity, we don't pump. We do dosing by addition of aluminum sulfate. At times we also add soda ash. And then from there, water goes through unit processes. First one is flocculation, coagulation, we go to a process called filtration, after which then we disinfect the water to make it safe for use.
People never knew that water resources existed underground in this region. So we introduced what we call water sanitation projects, producing water underground. So to date, we are only concentrating on what we call the sanitation aspect. Our vision with the people of the community is that at home or in the school for the time being, you should be able to drink water which you people who are educated are drinking on the streets.
Massive population growth and industrialization have increased the need for cost-effective water purification and wastewater treatment technologies. The chemical engineer's role has become more urgent than ever.
Water treatment is not a particularly simple business because you have to design and specify particular products depending on the quality of the water that you're treating. So as I say, if the water is saline, you have one type of equipment. If it's got bacteria in it, you have another type of equipment and process. And so we have a very wide range of equipment to suit all of these various water conditions that we find locally. And we're manufacturing, assembling a great deal of equipment ourselves. We make filters. We have a fiberglass factory here. And we also design and engineer and build specialized equipment like reverse osmosis plants, which is used for saline water and for very pure treatment. A new process called ultrafiltration, which is for water for consumption. We have pure water plants. We make the equipment for a lot of bottled water companies that are providing water into the markets around the region.
Engineers treat raw source water and contaminated wastewater so it can be reused or disposed. Effective wastewater treatment reduces diseases related to contaminated water like typhoid and cholera. As they work to improve our lives, engineers face challenges such as inadequate funding for water projects, decreased sources of sustainable water, innovating cost-effective methods for treating and supplying water.
Financing, we know the government is helping a lot, but the basket is for everybody. So that challenge is what I say ourselves, and the way we have started, we have to see that we are sustainable and we help the government so that we help the people. The other bit is the social setup of the people. You might want to do a project, like for example, I mentioned the Nandi, and people see it differently. They don't see it in the far future. That social setup, we also need to change some of it so that it's for the betterment of the people. The other one is the resources. We need everybody. We need all of us to participate in thinking and making this region a breadbasket for the region. We are lucky that the whole of this region is what we call the Nile Basin source of water in Kenya. So this individualistic attitude of ourselves need to be streamlined so that we see things for development and for the people of this region.
There are 43 sewerage systems and wastewater treatment plants in Kenya. Today, 30% of Kenyans have access to improved sanitation, be it through latrines or flush toilets connected to pipe systems. Still, there is a lot of room for improvement for Kenya's wastewater management.
We also achieve very high standards of water. The normal standard for turbidity is normally 5 or below. We are now achieving below 1, near 0, turbidity. And then we are covering everybody for 24 hours. We started off with a population of 23,000. It was rationing 1.5 hours of water per day. Now we are supplying water to about 195,000 people who are getting water 24 hours. We still have to cover another 60,000, but we need, we don't have the necessary money to extend the system to those areas. But we expect in another 1-2 years to be covering the entire population. We are also in the sewerage. When we took over, the sewage was in a very poor state. We rehabilitated it, we improved its volume capacity from 13,000 to 21,000. Then we were not able to meet, the standards. Today we are able to meet the NEMA standards, the KBS standards.
Most of our water supply is rain dependent, and too often, dry seasons mean dry taps, especially in notoriously arid parts of the country, such as southeastern Kenya and Turkana. Engineers have the skills and knowledge to address these problems, and with sufficient resources, they will play key roles in increasing access to safe water.
Basically, the people who before didn't have access to water and power, there are now solutions, cost-effective solutions that can be provided for these remote areas. And there's going to be huge investment, not just at the sort of national level, but at the individual and organizational level, and just throughout the whole region. We believe we're now, the country is at the stage of development where it needs a much greater level of engineering capacity as a nation and as a region. And that's where we see an important contribution that we will take, is by really increasing our engineering and technical capacity to be able to provide the solutions and introduce the new technologies appropriately in our markets, and then make appropriate products available to create the solutions that people are looking for as the country and the region develops.
In order to improve Kenyans' lives, engineers continue to design and implement new water treatment methods that are effective and affordable. They also research sustainable water sources to minimize reliance on rainfall.
We've been able to serve our target population using the gravity technology, making it much more cheaper to distribute that water, in that we don't involve the energy costs that are quite often prevalent in other areas. So meaning our production cost for water is rather low, and of course that benefit is translated to the water tariffs, and so our target community then can get water at quite lower tariffs. We also have this concept of having bulk water systems, whereby we tap water in bulk, in big quantities, in big pipelines from the catchment areas, gravitate it down to where the smaller schemes are and distribute it to those smaller schemes. And in that way, we are able to maintain quality within those smaller schemes, and quantity also, so that our service hours are much better, because in the past there was quite a lot of rationing. That is what we are gradually addressing now through our backwater systems from the catchment areas, from the water towers.
We are not using any electricity, mostly it is gravitational. Of course, for the treatment you are using the normal, coagulation, using, the aram, soda ash, and then for disinfection you are using chlorine to ensure that the water quality is free of any microorganisms. And like I've said, we are also generating our own electricity, which is powering the pumps for backwashing, which is also powering writing points, which is powering even the electrical systems we are using to monitor directly from our control room what is happening in the production lines and the treatment places, especially the water levels and how much you are producing every day. And of course, you have also a app which you use to monitor the quality of water. It's fully fledged. We can do both the water and the sewerage.
Safe and cost-effective power solutions reduce the cost of supplying water. Companies like Power Techniques provide engineers with an array of solutions to get the job done. Engineers are meeting the water challenge.
We have been manufacturing panels, borehole panels, for extraction of water after the water has been found, for us to ensure that the water is treated and consumed correctly. We supply the electrical panels for running of the various pumps. One of the large water sectors water project which we did was Kitui Masinga water scheme, where we supplied all the electrical switch gears. We supplied part of Nakuru water supply in Rwanda, and we did some work in Rwanda as well.
I don't like to call it corporate social responsibility. I don't think it's a responsibility per se. This is part and parcel of our livelihood. Our livelihood comes from resources with the communities that we work with. If the communities are richer, if the communities are better off because of us, then all of us are better off. So this is the way we approach our social activities. How can we make our communities better? Because they are eventually our customers.
In the next episode of Awesome, the amazing world of engineering, we explore engineering and roads infrastructure. Awesome, brought to you by Kenya Engineer and Rhino Cement.
Want to know the latest innovation in engineering? Are you curious about how technology and machinery works? The Kenya Engineer has answers for you. We are an authoritative journal covering engineering stories in Kenya and across East Africa. Log on to www.kenyaengineer.co.ke and get the latest on engineering jobs and tenders. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook and join the amazing world of engineering. Kenya Engineer, demystifying engineering.